Money, the most powerful story humanity ever believed in. We trade our time, our labour, even our dreams for it. Yet few truly understand where it comes from, or who controls its flow. Behind every empire, every boom, and every collapse lies a single invisible force: the system of money. What is money really? A shiny metal? A printed note? A number on a screen? In essence, money is trust, codified into currency and multiplied through credit. But how that trust is created defines who holds power. For centuries, money was tangible. Gold and silver coins carried not just metal, but meaning. In ancient Lydia, around 600 BC, the first coins were minted, each stamped with a ruler's seal, symbolizing both value and authority. Empires rose and fell with the metals that backed their promises. Rome expanded on the strength of its silver denarius, and collapsed when it began to dilute that very silver to fund endless wars. As metal content shrank, trust eroded, and when trust dies, money follows. Fast forward to medieval China. The Song dynasty faced a problem. Trade had outgrown the weight of its coins, so they printed promises, the world's first paper money. Light, portable, powerful, but dangerous, because once rulers learned they could print wealth instead of earning it, inflation became a matter of ink and ambition. Europe followed centuries later. By the 17th century, private banks in London and Amsterdam were issuing their own notes, backed supposedly by gold, but the magic trick was already forming. You could issue more paper than you had gold as long as people believed you could pay. In 1694, the Bank of England was founded, not to serve the people, but to finance a war. Investors lent money to the crown, and in return were granted the right to print notes and collect interest. This model, private credit, public debt, became the foundation of the modern financial system. Nations learned that sovereignty could be financed, and wars could be won, not just with armies, but with balance sheets. By the 19th century, gold had become the global anchor. Every major currency was convertible into a fixed weight of metal. It was called the gold standard, a promise that every note was as good as gold. But promises cost discipline. When World War I erupted, nations suspended the standard to print money for war. Inflation spread like a silent second front. By the time peace returned, faith in gold, and in governments, was fractured. In 1944, as the Second World War neared its end, the world gathered in a quiet New Hampshire town called Bretton Woods. The goal: rebuild the global economy and prevent another depression. The solution: tie all major currencies to the US dollar, and tie the dollar to gold. It was the birth of the American century. The dollar became not just America's currency, but the world's, and with it, Washington gained a power once reserved for kings, the ability to create the money everyone else must use. But no empire resists temptation forever. By the late 1960s, the US was printing dollars faster than it mined gold. Vietnam, social programs, and corporate expansion all demanded more spending. So in 1971, President Richard Nixon severed the link. The dollar was no longer backed by gold, only by confidence. This was the moment money became pure credit, a system based on debt, leverage, and faith in the future. So how is money actually created now? Not by governments printing notes, but by commercial banks, typing digits into accounts. When a bank approves a loan, it doesn't move existing money, it creates new money. Every mortgage, every credit card, every business loan is a spark of monetary creation, born from debt. When the loan is repaid, that money disappears. But the interest or the profit stays. And over time, this interest concentrates wealth toward those who issue the credit, not those who work for it. This system has one built-in flaw. It requires perpetual growth. Because every dollar is born as debt, and debt carries interest, the total money supply must keep expanding, or the system seizes. It's a treadmill economy. If we stop running, it collapses. History repeats in credit cycles. Each boom begins with optimism, leverage, and easy money. Then comes inflation, tightening, panic, and mining and collapse. Tulip mania, the South Sea bubble, 1929, 2008. Different centuries, same mechanism, too much money chasing too few real assets. In 2008, when Lehman Brothers fell, the illusion of control shattered. Trillions vanished in weeks. But the system didn't reform. It inflated. Central banks cut rates to zero and began printing money at scale. Quantitative easing. Governments saved the banks to save the system. But in doing so, they deepened its dependence on cheap credit. Today's global debt exceeds $300 trillion, more than triple the world's annual GDP. Every percentage point in interest is now $1 trillion tremor. So who truly benefits from this architecture? Those closest to the source of credit: governments, large corporations, and financial institutions. They borrow first, spend first, and gain from inflation later. The farther you are from the creation point, the more you pay the price, through higher cost, stagnant wages, and eroded savings. Money is not neutral. It's a hierarchy. As money multiplied, production took a backseat to speculation. Finance became an industry that feeds on itself, making money from money. Derivatives, hedge funds, shadow banking. Tools once meant to manage risk, now create it at planetary scale. Today, 95% of currency transactions have nothing to do with trade or goods. They're bets. Algorithms trading with algorithms, seeking profit in microseconds. And beyond nations lies a deeper imbalance. Developing countries borrowing currencies they can't print. When crises hit, they're forced to sell assets, privatize resources, and adopt austerity dictated by global lenders. It's financial imperialism. Empire through spreadsheets instead of swords. Control the currency, and you control the colony. Even advanced economies aren't fully sovereign. Central banks promise independence, but they serve markets they can't afford to upset. A single sentence from a Federal Reserve chair can move trillions across continents. Policy has become performance and markets the audience. Inflation doesn't steal wealth equally. It punishes savings and rewards debt. It transfers value from workers to asset holders, from the many to the few. In the 1970s, it was oil. In the 2020s, it was liquidity. When trillions are created to save the system, the cost shows up not on government ledgers, but in your grocery bill and rent. Today, the system is entering a new phase. Cash is fading. Nearly 98% of global money now exists only as code. Digital payments, crypto assets, and central bank digital currencies are redefining what money even means. On one side, decentralization, Bitcoin, Ethereum, the dream of trustless, borderless finance. On the other, hyper-centralization. Governments experimenting with programmable, traceable digital cash. Money is becoming not just a tool of exchange, but a tool of control. Imagine a world where every transaction is recorded, every purchase programmable. A tax could be deducted instantly. A fine could be issued automatically. Your digital wallet could expire, forcing you to spend rather than save. It's efficient and terrifying, because when money becomes code, the policy becomes software, and whoever writes the code writes the rules. The question isn't whether the system of money is flawed, but whether it can evolve before it implodes. History suggests change only follows crisis, from gold to paper, from paper to digital. Each transition came after collapse. What will trigger the next? Debt saturation, currency wars, or the quiet erosion of trust? Some economists argue the future of money must be tied to something tangible again. Not gold, but energy, productivity, or even carbon. A kilowatt currency could anchor value in what sustains life, not speculation. But any new system will face the same question. Who controls issuance and who benefits first? Money is not evil, but it's never neutral. It mirrors our priorities. If we create it through debt, we reward leverage. If we create it through productivity, we reward work. If we create it through speculation, we reward illusion. The system of money is ultimately a reflection of us. Every civilization has believed its money would last forever. Every one of them was wrong. The Roman denarius, the French assignat, the British pound at the height of empire, the dollar today, each began as a symbol of trust and ended as a warning. Because the true backing of money has never been gold or paper or code, it has always been belief. And belief once broken is the hardest currency to restore. This is the system of money. The invisible architecture that builds empires and quietly decides who rises and who falls. This is Financial History Chronicles, where the past doesn't just echo, it warns. Because every empire's collapse begins the moment it forgets how its money was made.